following has been paid for by the Mean Street Podcast. Mean Street Podcast.
All right, it's a Mean Street Podcast. We're coming to you from the Action Building in Canton, Georgia. It's Brandon Benefield here with you, a.k.a. B-Double, if you will. We're here with Adam Howell, co-host of the Mean Street Podcast, and we're here with the general manager of SHW, that's Southern Honor Wrestling right here in Canton, Georgia. It's Gary Lamb. How are you, buddy?
Man, we're doing great today. Glad you guys are out here.
Well, we are looking forward to the debut show. It's coming up October 5th at the Action Building, 261 Marietta Road right here in Canton. So we're very excited about it. I guess, why don't you start us out a little bit by telling us, how did you come up with this? How did you get involved with it? Was this your brainchild? Was it you and some other people put it together? How did it come about?
Well, the way it started was, obviously, I've been a wrestling fan my whole life. I have a 7-year-old son, and about a year and a half ago, like we all did when we were kids, he got consumed with wrestling. And we were talking about it. He wanted to check it out. We had some connections with some big names, just through some different circumstances. So they allowed us to get into some shows, left tickets for us, and then I found out there was a local show here in our community. So I started attending that here and there. Yeah. And I own this building, so we have a 25,000 square foot venue, for lack of a better word. I've promoted concerts. I've been in promotion my whole life. We've brought in Jacob Bryant. We brought in Stuck Mojo. We brought in Fozzy. We've done a lot of shows here, a lot of events here. I do big festivals. And so after going to one of the local shows here, which was a phenomenal family-focused show, right, I just thought there was a great niche for something else. And so began to talk to some of these names that I knew about a year and a half ago. And, man, we were like, we ought to start a promotion. We ought to do something in the building. The building's got $150,000 in lights and sound. It's got staging. It's got everything you need. And that's a huge expense for wrestling promotion starting up, is getting a building. So we have no expense there. So we started talking about it. One of the connections we had during that time is also in the music industry. They had released a CD. It was time to go on tour, and it kind of got pushed to the back burner. Yeah. And so, which was fine. I had all my festivals going on. During that time, the other promotion that I was talking about needed a building, so they actually moved into our building. I said, man, why don't you guys use our building? So about 5 months ago, they moved into our building. Watching them in our building and watching the lack of how they utilized our building, got that stirring again. And I decided to go out on our own. I called the guy that I was talking to before, and he said, man, actually the timing's perfect. He said, in the year we're off tour, he said, the independent scene is so hot. And I was very unfamiliar with what was happening in the independent scene, to be honest with you. I was watching the big guys, going to a local show, and it was right about the time that they announced All In. I started doing my research. I'm kind of a research nerd, so I was like, man, this is a phenomenal time. Seeing that up north, being the only promotion, was leading so much great talent out there for independent guys. And then I began to explore the state of Georgia. And while there's a lot of shows in the state of Georgia, there's no high production show in the state of Georgia. There's no TV ready show in the state of Georgia. And with our connections, we were able to provide both of those. So our goal was to start in January. And I said, man, why don't we just start prepping this? Maybe we'll launch a show in January. Anything in my life doesn't really happen that way. So 2 weeks later, without telling everybody, I said, hey, we're starting in October. And like, what do you mean we're starting? I said, man, I can't wait till January. I said, I'll be bored. And I said, let's just start this thing. And so here we are, October 5th, our first show. And, man, we're super excited about it.
Man, that's a great story. And kind of getting into the promoter aspect, the promoter hat that you wear. Growing up, I loved wrestling figures, right? Who didn't? And so was the Vince McMahon figure your favorite figure? And did you see yourself as a promoter from an early age?
I didn't. I always saw myself, I don't know why, because I'm not and obviously don't have that talent. I always saw myself as the Ric Flair. And so, man, I always was infatuated with the Horseman, always infatuated with Flair. I grew up with a very entrepreneurial dad. So I'm 42 years old, and I've never had a job. I've never worked for anybody else. When I was 16 years old, I was really into baseball cards and told my dad, I said, man, I need to go get a job, like any kid. And my dad said, well, instead of working at a fast food restaurant, why don't we open a baseball card store? So when I was 16, I owned my first baseball card store, comic book store, and I've just owned businesses my whole life, and that you have to promote to do that.
Yeah.
And so it just kind of came natural, but I've always wanted to be Ric Flair secretly.
Well, the secret's out here. You heard it here first on the Mean Street Podcast. Gary Lamb, the Nature Boy. Watch out for some gimmick infringement.
Exactly.
Well, that's awesome. And you know, that's very much a CEO mentality, and I've touched on that on the show before about what surprised me about All In was that Cody and the Bucks had that CEO personality, and so you see yourself having that.
I do. I've started businesses my whole life. Like I said, for the last 20 years, I've owned a baseball store. I've owned a comic book store. I've promoted festivals. I've done festivals that have drawn 30 and 40,000 people. We've done the wrestling here. Kind of a weird thing, but I also pastor a church, and I've started 3 churches in my life. So
awesome.
Everything I've ever done I kind of believe it's easier to give birth than it is to raise the dead. So let's start something instead of trying to resurrect something. And I don't do real good with rules, so I want to do my own thing. And we've learned there's a lot of rules in wrestling as we've started this, and we've broken a lot of them apparently.
Yeah. That's awesome. So your dad was a big role model for you, and did you see in the wrestling world, are there any famous promoters that inspire you?
Well, yeah, man. I mean, Paul Heyman.
Yeah.
I mean, we grew up in that age. I don't know
Yeah.
how old you guys are, but I mean, we grew up in the ECW age.
Absolutely.
And to see someone go out on their own and do that, and even Cody, man, like
Yeah.
I have devoured everything there is about him.
Yeah.
In the last 3 months. I mean, that spirit. I've read a lot about Dusty Rhodes. I'm reading a book right now about, I can't remember the guy, old NWA president and all the troubles the NWA went through. Brody, I can't remember the name of the book, but it's been a great book. And wrestling is just one of those things. I feel like it's that first love. I've left it a lot in my life, and you just always come back to it, and then you leave it for a year and a half, 2 years, and all of a sudden one thing strikes, and you're like, you're back hooked again.
Oh, absolutely.
And then you leave it, and then you're back hooked again. And I don't know what it is. I think my wife calls me the redneck P.T. Barnum. So she's like, of course you love wrestling. And so it just kind of how we evolved into it.
Well, I think a lot of fans are in that state where they go away for a time, and I've certainly done that. Brandon, I'm sure you've done that in your career as a fan.
Yeah, I was going to say, you mentioned that, and, you know, I think we've all kind of gone through that phase of, you talk about the first love. Well, you know, we grew up as little kids watching it, and then as you get a little older, and then we got stuck where it was just WWE, and
Right.
WCW went out of business,
Yeah.
and so it goes through those phases of WWE kind of, I'm getting a little bored with this, but see, with Adam and I, you know, we started the Mean Street Podcast around the same time. We started getting more interested in this independent wrestling promotions all around town, and we thought, this is kind of resparking that love that we have.
It's organic.
Yeah.
It's raw. I'm a big believer in different things. There's 3 phases. There's the pioneer stage. That's the guys who come along and they pave the way, and maybe they don't get all the respect because they pay all the dues, and it kind of eats them up. Then there's the early adapters. And they're the ones who come along, learn from the pioneers, and they make the money. They put on the successful stuff.
Yeah.
Then there's the bandwagoners, and when it reaches the bandwagoner stage, it starts to die off. And I think independent wrestling right now is in that early adapter stage. I think the guys who went before us, the ECWs, even the Codys, I think they were the pioneers. We get to learn from their mistakes.
Right.
We get to come along as the early adapters now and say, man, let's do what they're doing, or let's do what this promotion over here in this high school gym's doing. But let's add this to it and add this to it. And you know what? That didn't work. So learn from their mistakes. But I don't think we've reached that bandwagon stage yet. So I think from an independent standpoint, it's just raw. It's organic. I think social media has created a following in it. And it's just a fun thing. And it's an exciting time to be part of that.
And that brings up a good question is, you know, one of my passions on the podcast is kind of getting to the fan like us who grew up during the Attitude Era,
Right.
and even before that with Hogan and eating our vitamins and
Yes.
saying our prayers. Like we've seen all that, and now we're mid-30s, and we want to get more involved in the local scene. And it's almost like politics, where I feel like if you want to make a change, get involved in your local scene, right? Vote in your local elections, and just like kind of with the pro wrestling world, like if you want to make a big difference, if you want to really get in there and understand pro wrestling, get involved in your local independent pro wrestling scene. What would you tell our listeners to get them excited to come out on October 5th?
I would tell them if they're our age and they grew up in that Attitude Era, I think they're going to enjoy it. I mean, obviously, if you're watching the current product up north, you're not getting that. If you're going to local promotions, you're not getting that. And I think that we can do that. By no means, it's funny. I've been watching on the network a bunch of the old ECW shows, and I forgot how much they push the envelope. Like, I don't remember that
yeah.
as a teenager.
Oh, yeah.
And I was watching the other day with Missy Hyatt, and, like, it takes a lot. My wife, since she's looking at me, because she's
whoa.
and I was like, oh, I don't remember that. You know what
I do.
And so it's funny, the other promotions have kind of definitely targeted us, and they're like, they're going to be not family friendly, and we are going to be family friendly.
I was going to ask you that. So
we are going to be family friendly, but I think where a lot of the local promotions are running no bones about it G-rated shows.
Yeah.
I think because we grew up on stuff, our G-rate's a little different. I always tell people our show's going to be PG, maybe a little PG-13, but it's a different day and time. I mean, I have a 7-year-old, and there's certain PG-13 movies I let him watch.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so we're definitely not going to be a G-rated show. We're definitely going to push the envelope. We are not going to push the envelope like ECW used to do. I mean, we're not in Philadelphia. I remember watching that every week and never being struck by it. Now that I'm 42 with 4 kids, I'm like, let's fast forward to that. You can't watch that.
I wonder if ECW, what their insurance bill looked like, and if the insurance company actually watched the show.
Yeah, I can't imagine. Or did they even have insurance?
I don't think Paul Heyman had insurance.
No, I don't think so either.
I don't think so. Now, you mentioned earlier breaking some rules and a little bit of the politics of, we always knew there was politics in the big companies, WWE, WCW, all that kind of stuff, but you never really think about the independent promotions and politics that might get involved behind the scenes in the indies. So you mentioned that you may have broken some rules or maybe upset some folks over the course of putting SHW together.
I keep joking.
Is that something you can talk about?
I don't care. I'll
All right,
talk
sure,
about
go
it.
ahead.
I keep joking that the independent wrestling scene is like the mafia. Man, I never knew that. And there's ways it's always been done. And to go start promotions, you had to go get permission from this guy and get their blessing. And we're just kind of like, screw that. Like, we're not doing that. You know what I mean? There was already a show in Canton, so people are like, you can't start a show in Canton. I have a 25,000 square foot building in Canton. Why am I going to go start a show somewhere else? Right. And that just didn't make sense to me. I'm a big free market guy. Yeah. And so we just don't really care. And I don't mean that disrespectful to other promotions, but we didn't start our promotion for other promotions. We started for fans, and I believe you can create a great fan base that's excited about something. You'll have a great product. But we have definitely rubbed some people wrong, which is funny to me because the whole thing about wrestling is it's a work.
Right.
Hey, but when you start pulling your
Wait, what?
But when you start pushing stuff or treating it like a work and they're all getting mad. I'm like, are we not working an angle here? We're not trying to build a story. Quit being a dumbass and let's build a story off this.
Right.
I think a promotion versus promotion battle would be the most fun thing around, but they're scared to death of it.
And the fans would love that.
The fans would
like back in the
lose
day
their
when they wanted
mind.
to see WWF face WCW.
Yeah.
Like, that was always a dream for everybody, and never got. I mean, you got the invasion angle, which was kind of watered down, but
right.
To your point, like, that would be a huge thing for the fans.
It would be huge, and with the ability nowadays, I think what's lacking in independent promotions is storylines. And they'll tell you that you can't do it. And I don't understand with social media why you can't do that. You should be promoting stuff through social media and storylines and videos and angles, all leading up to your shows. And so we definitely plan to build our promotion around, we call them moments and stories. And I think at the end of the day, the wrestling's important. I do think that. And I don't want to belittle the wrestling. But at the end of the day, they're going to leave here and they're going to remember that moment. They're going to remember that crazy move. They're going to remember that crazy storyline. They're going to want to know what happened. And it literally is lacking. You came to a show here.
Yeah. That's where I first met you.
And that was probably about as good as it gets in independent wrestling in Georgia.
Yeah.
And it was rough. You're not going to say that. I'm going to say it, though. It was rough. And it was horrible, dare say. Like, I don't want to go to a wrestling show and feel like I can whoop the guy's ass in the ring. You know what I mean? Like, I want the guys to look like athletes, and I want them to be wrestlers, and I want to suspend that disbelief for a minute. And people want to escape. They want to escape that 9-to-5 job and the bills and come here and do something they enjoyed. And I go to some of these shows. I know it's going to rub people the wrong way, but when there's a 350-pound guy that's 60 seconds in the ring, can't even breathe, in the match can't even breathe, and I know I could whoop his ass, he doesn't need to be in my ring wrestling. You know what I mean? And so we've been very intentional about doing our homework and going after what we think are the best athletes in Georgia and using them and putting them all on the same card. Another thing that we've been very intentional about is making sure the guys are paid as well as can be. I mean, a lot of these guys show up literally. They show up for $5, $10, and the promoter's thinking, It's gas money. So we set every guy at a minimum is getting $50.
Yeah.
And I mean, again, that's nothing, but what it's done is it's allowed you get what you pay for. I've had a lot of promoters keep telling us, your talent bill is going to put you out of business. Well, we're lucky that we can do better with talent because again, we don't have a facility bill. And so you've seen the guys. We're doing a video shoot here today at our building, and you've seen the guys. They look like wrestlers. Yeah. They look like they belong in the ring. Do they like to be in the WWE? Not all of them, but I think any of the guys here look like they could have been on the All-In card. Absolutely. Where when you come to some of these other shows, I was in a show in Rome yesterday, and it was embarrassing, some of the guys in the ring. But I think that's also the beauty of independent wrestling. I think that's awesome and it's fun, but it's not the product we want to put on.
I have seen a couple guys here that while they were lacing up their boots, I'm glad they were smiling at me because my suspension was definitely gone out the window. I was like, I'm glad you're friendly. So that kind of brings up a question to me is you're kind of telling us how SHW is going to stand apart from a promotion standpoint with your storytelling. Does that put you in the director's chair, in the writer's chair? What's your hand look like there?
I'm very active in that. I'm a very creative person. I have a lot of input on that. Being an outsider, I didn't know a lot of the wrestlers. So Dylan Freimeyer, who portrays Sunny Days, which is a local wrestler, has been doing all our booking. He knows everyone. He's bringing the right guys in, but nobody gets brought in without me talking to them. Me and Dylan, probably like you guys with the podcast, me and Dylan on the phone every day. And it's funny. That's the bad thing about the first show. We've been planning it for 4 months, so the storylines have changed. I can't wait to find, like right now we know what we're doing and we know it won't be the same in 2 weeks. It'll be nice when that's over. Okay, now we only have 4 weeks before the next one. But I'm very active in everything. It's a unique thing too because we have brought in such high caliber athletes. A lot of our guys are involved with Evolve up north. And so that's a WWE training ground. Obviously if Evolve uses them, they're not wrestling for us. They're going to Evolve on the same night.
Oh, yeah.
So it's been a little bit weird as you're planning 3 and 4 months out, and you want to build something around this guy, but you don't know if Evolve's going to use the night because they run the first Friday of the month too. So we're still wading through that water and trying to figure it out. We're bringing some name guys in, but we do not want to build our promotion on names. I think the names are fun. They're fun for us. We want to meet Raven. We want to meet Scott Hall. We want to meet Jake Roberts. We want to meet Scott Steiner, some of the guys that we've been talking to, and that's fun. You know what I mean? But we don't want to build our promotion on them. We know that we need to develop our athletes. And that's a unique thing in independent, too, because they have their gimmicks. Yeah. And there's several guys that we've liked and wanted to use, but we didn't want that gimmick. And some of them have been willing to change the gimmick to come over here and wrestle. Some haven't, and no hard feelings on that. Yeah. We're just not going to use you. And so I think what's going to set us apart is, I keep going back to it, but the ability to have our own building, not to set up and tear down an armory, a high school gym.
Well, that's the American dream, isn't it?
Right.
I mean, that's the American dream right there. You're living it.
To be able to do what we can production from day one, we're filming for television, and we can get into that in a little bit. But we're very blessed. I don't know if you've ever done certain business ventures. I've done a lot, and some of them it seems like no doors open, and then some you seem like God, every door just keeps opening for this to happen. That's the way SHW has been. It's every door has opened, and I put. This is a ballsy statement, and I hate, man, I want to be careful
Coming
I say
from
it.
you? No.
Yeah, I know.
We just met.
But I put our promotion, our video, our graphics up against I put the quality up against Ring of Honor.
You know, everything you've put on Facebook so far with the promo videos and everything look top notch.
Yeah, it's been great, and that was our plan from day one. Now we got to deliver. All that's great, and it's great to go to 1,000 followers on your Facebook page in 3 weeks, but you got to deliver October. All of that will get people here one time.
Right.
Yep. October 5th, we got to deliver to keep them.
Yeah.
And we've talked a big game, and maybe too big of a game. And so now we've got to deliver it. Now it's those nights where my wife knows 2 weeks out from an event, she's like, you're not going to be sleeping much, are you? And I get tense. And I'm in that stage now. Now I don't know if you guys do this in your first podcast. You're all jacked up. You're like, no one's listening. Now I'm that way. I'm like, we've sold a lot of tickets, and I'm still like, no one's coming. And she's like, you've already sold tickets. I'm like, that first show, no one's coming. I just know it. So I'm going to have to go get the homeless people behind the building to pack the place out. And I said, but we think we're going to deliver.
Yeah, we were definitely like that after the first one. We were like, well, we're going to at least have 2 listeners. It's going to be me and you.
Right, exactly.
So,
maybe my mom. Right. For the first one.
So one thing I wanted to ask you, you're talking about the some behind-the-scenes stuff and what you're involved with. Now, your most recent promo video that we saw had you on there as the general manager of the company, doing a nice little promo about getting people out here for October 5th. Now, is there going to be character Gary and real life Gary? Or are they kind of the same person?
They're kind of the same person.
Okay, just curious, because you know how they say, some of the wrestlers, like Stone Cold or The Rock, they say, well, just be yourself, but turn it up to 10.
Yeah, and that's what we've done. It's funny, as we were writing storylines, Dylan, who is he's just been in the industry forever, was like, are you a heel or are you a babyface? And I said, I'm me. No, are you a heel? I said, I'm just going to be me.
Right.
I don't want to be a heel. I just want to be me. I'm an asshole. I'm outspoken. I said this to you guys off camera. My wife calls me the redneck P.T. Barnum. I want to be able to get in the ring and be me. And at the end of the day, it's my product. I'm the one who's floated the money. It's not an ego thing. I want it in my hands.
Yeah.
I don't want to be, this guy's our general manager. I speak for a living. It's what I do. I promote for a living. So if it's going to fail, it's going to fail with me in the ring, pushing the agenda. I do us against the world better than anybody.
Right.
And so I want our fans to feel it's us against every promotion. I want them to think that we're the promotion that every other promotion hates, that no one wants to succeed, that thinks can make it. I want to create a fan base here that is crazy, and we're trying to do that from day one. And lucky for us, we haven't had to make that be a work, because other promotions have run us down so much that it's just fuel. We were going to do it anyway. We were going to say they were running us down no matter what, but they have run us down so much that it's great. We were at the Superstars of Wrestling show yesterday in Rome and had a good time with some great names there, a lot of promoters there. And the minute anybody found out we were Southern Honor, it was attitude. It was arrogance. It was turn the shoulder and walk away.
Oh, you're those guys.
Yeah, but every fan knew about us, and every performer knew about us.
That's awesome.
And that's our focus. And I mean, we were blown away by how many people came up to us excited about the show, knowing about it, and how many big names. I mean, I'm a Scott Steiner freak.
Right.
And
So is he.
Yeah. And so
hey, the freaks love the peaks.
Yeah, exactly. And we ran the Booker T booth. We sponsored the Booker T booth. Well, they set Scott right up next to us. Well, Scott lives here.
Yeah.
And
been to his shonies several times.
Exactly. And we just hit it off. And it was nice to hear him bragging on the way our posters looked and our cards looked, and then him say, I'd like to come up one night. I'm like, yeah, come up one night. We would love. No, please don't come up one night. Yeah,
of course.
But I think these guys, again, these guys travel around for $5. They're sold out.
Yeah.
They're committed. So to know they're going to get to be part of a promotion that's just as committed, who doesn't want to be in the limelight? Who doesn't want to be part of the video? These guys have never seen themselves in a video that wasn't filmed on their phone, and now they're seeing the production that we're putting out and Dylan's putting out and the resources we have behind that because of the studio behind that. They're jacked up.
Well, with those naysayers out there, and those people that are kind of approaching with some pride and arrogance, I would be cautious if I were them, because that's going to create a natural competition, and we're going to sort of have our own little Greater Metro Atlanta, North Georgia Monday Night Wars sort of.
And
here.
I think it should raise the game for everybody.
Absolutely.
And I think competition's good, and so and again. To me, it's not a matter I want to put these guys out of business.
No.
It's wrestling. Man, these guys are 40 minutes away. They don't affect what I do. I want to see everyone successful. I'm a wrestling fan.
Yeah.
And so I love to go to shows. My problem is, because of the way my mind works, I can't go to anything and enjoy it. I go to everything and I'm like, how can I make this better?
Oh, yeah.
How can I do better? Like, I'm at the wrestling show, which they did a great job.
Yeah.
And I couldn't enjoy it because the whole time I'm thinking, you know what I would have done?
Yeah.
My wife called me and she's like, how? She goes, never mind, I'm not even asking how it was, because all you're going to do is tell me all the ways you could have made it better. I said, okay, I'll be home for dinner in a minute. You know?
I would love to see your Myers-Briggs test results. I'm sure it's like the executive, the CEO level.
Yeah.
That's great. That's awesome. Got anything else you want to?
Well, I was going to say, so to answer my question, are we going to get what the difference between regular Gary and general manager Gary?
I'm just going to be me.
I'm thinking you're going to be like the NWO, where they came out and they were supposed to be the new heels, and then everybody started cheering them. So then there was that fine line of, are they heel or are they babyface? Are they heel or are they babyface?
I think that I kind of want to play the angle that I'm me, but I'm fair. Whichever side they are, we're going to run a tight ship. We're going to make sure everybody competes well. and we're going to put on a great show for the fans. At the end of the day, everything we need to do is about those paying to be there. It's not about me. It's not about the athletes. It's not about the product. It's about making sure that those people who come in and pay $10 of their hard-earned money get to escape the bullshit of their day-to-day life for 2.5, 3 hours and leave here being entertained.
Yeah.
And just to be a part of something that's local, I think is huge. And that's why Mean Street Podcast exists, is to get these local wrestling fans involved, to bring them. We're going to make friends. We're going to be shouting together. We're going to be chanting together. And because SHW, like you've said already, it's going to stand apart in promotion, in storytelling. It's going to stand apart in athletic capability and in story overall. Would you say that?
I hope so. Yeah. That is definitely our plan. It's definitely to create, we're going to have full production here, TV production from the first show. And our plan is we have 4 weeks between the next show. So we have about a 2.5 hour show. Our plan is to release 30-minute TV shows every week for the 4 weeks leading up to the next show. And TV quality, we're already in discussions with Fight TV about getting on there. It's a little slower process than we thought. I thought it was... My ignorance thought it was, hey, we want to be on your show and put us on there. You make money. And it's not that simple. And so I think by January, we'll be able to do that. We're definitely exploring that too. We initially started our show on a Friday night because there was another promotion in our building. We wanted to be respectful of them. We're going to watch that. I prefer Friday night because it gives me the rest of my weekend off. But if we think Saturday night's a better night, January, we're already booked through December. So January, we might move to Saturday nights. We want to take it on the road. I don't know if I want to put this on the podcast. I'm going to put it on the podcast. I guess it holds me some accountability.
Here we go. Breaking news.
In 2 years, WrestleMania is here. Yeah. And we want to be big enough at that time to put on some type of show. We've eyeballed the Cobb Civic Center over and over. We've thought about being real ballsy and laying it all on the table and going ahead and putting a deposit on it leading up to that show to put on at least a 2,000 or 3,000, 4,000 attendance show and to give us something to drive for. That's just a great weekend because, Ring of Honor is going to come Friday night. NXT is going to be there Saturday night. WrestleMania will be Sunday, but people are going to start getting in town Wednesday and Thursday. Yeah. You're going to have 150,000 wrestling fans come. Maybe Thursday night we can put on a cool show. But we got 2 years to build up to that.
Yeah, maybe even more. Mercedes-Benz holds 75,000.
Yeah, I think we could hold that, yeah.
So when you think about all these people coming in for that, I know of a lot of wrestling fans that travel to WrestleMania and don't even go to WrestleMania.
Right, oh, of course.
Just thousands. That would be incredible. And, the news that Ring of Honor and New Japan sold out Madison Square Garden on the same night as NXT TakeOver.
Without announcing their card.
That's amazing.
Without even knowing if any of their stars are going to be around, because Cody and the Bucks and all their contracts will be up.
I think it's very possible for Southern Honor Wrestling. I have chills right now thinking about that. Look at that. You see the chill bumps.
I tell you what, it's an exciting time for guys like you and guys like us to nerd out, to geek out on something we love, but also something that's about to take off. And I think that's where our connection is. You guys started at the same time we started. And so I think there'll always be that connection. And we hope you guys at our show, you guys are going to be at our first show doing a live broadcast. Or I don't know if it'll be live, but you're going to be recording.
Live to tape.
Yeah, live to tape. Yeah. And so, we definitely, I think all of that stuff works together. And I think it's everything I've ever started, whether it's festivals, barbecue festivals, crap, it's more fun when you're doing it with groups that are kind of in the same field and
everybody has that
the
passion.
same journey.
Everybody has that same passion.
And so, man, I'm excited you guys came out for the video shoot today, and it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, we're excited that you had us. And one more thing I wanted to bring up, and then I'll let Adam get this last question. But I don't know if you heard our last podcast. We started talking about how we really enjoy the WWE does these pre-shows before the big pay-per-views.
Right.
Maybe you guys do a little Facebook pre-show on your Facebook page.
Maybe.
And maybe you might need somebody to host that for you. I don't know.
That might be an awesome thing.
We're going to be at the show anyway.
I haven't listened to that podcast yet because I was on a cruise this week.
Right.
But I think that's a great idea. And I tell you one thing that we are working on, and we haven't been able to pull it off quite yet. Obviously, at every show, we're going to have a big name there. Mm-hmm. So we're thinking about 2 blocks away is a great bar that has an upstairs. And we're talking about offering VIP experiences after the show for that. Come, have appetizers, have drinks, and let them tell stories.
Yeah.
And
that'd be awesome.
But the pre-show, we're open to anything, especially anything that we think is going to take it a whole nother level. And that's important to us. And so, man, that's a great idea. So I'll have my people contact your people.
All right, sounds good.
So I just have one question, then I'll let you guys close it out with your with our social medias and whatnot. But you keep on mentioning barbecue. Can I count on some barbecue on October 5th?
Probably. We have 1,000-gallon smoker right here on the back of the building. You haven't seen it yet. And so it's the biggest smoker in Georgia.
Awesome.
And so there's probably a real good chance there'll be some barbecue somewhere on October 5th.
All right, well, we appreciate it so much having you on the show with us now. Southern Honor Wrestling, October 5th, debut show right here in Canton, Georgia at the Action Building. Give us some the social medias.
On Instagram and Facebook, it's Southern Honor Wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
On Twitter, it's S Honor Wrestling. And, of course, you can look for the search engine for either one of those. And definitely, if you want to stay in the loop, TV-wise, production-wise, week-to-week, story-wise, Facebook page is going to be your best bet.
All right. Well, any last big push to get the crowd out there for October 5th for the debut show? Anything you want to say to the fans?
Hey, here's the deal, man. There's something exciting about being part of the first. There's something exciting about being part of a debut show. October 5th. I say this and everybody thinks it's just a catchy phrase, but I mean it. I literally believe we're going to change the game in independent wrestling, Georgia. Independent wrestling in the state of Georgia. And man, I would encourage you guys to come out, come rowdy, come with signs, come ready to blow the roof off the Action Building. We're going to do everything in our power to deliver everything we've promised, and we think it's going to be incredible.
Well, there you go, Gary Lamb, General Manager for Southern Honor Wrestling. #for the honor. Thanks so much, Gary.
Hey, man,
appreciate it, buddy.
Thank you guys for having me.
Yes, sir.